Hello, and welcome back to Rails Quest. Today I want to briefly show you the Fly.io service. If you're not familiar with Fly.io, I encourage you to go check it out. It's a great hosting service, and it's become one of my favorite places to host Rails applications. I've talked a little bit on the channel about Kamal and how that's become the default with Rails 8, and I still love Kamal and I use it for several apps. And I would encourage you to check that out also and learn about it if you don't know, so that you can compare. But also, in the spirit of comparison, let's take a look at Fly.io. I'll show you a little bit of behind the scenes how I use it, and just one little tip that will help you save some money if you want to just deploy a small toy app or several of them and not have to pay a lot of money hosting them somewhere, because as we all know, these hosting services can quickly get very expensive. So let's dive right in. This is the front page of Fly.io. So now that you can see it a little bit better, it's just a public cloud for developers who ship. So it's a front end on top of who knows what cloud services that manages the virtual machines for you. I've got a video on the channel that shows me developing and deploying an app from scratch using AI, and then at the end of it, I deploy to Fly.io. I show you how simple that process can be. Go ahead and check that out if you're interested in seeing a demo of how that works. This video is going to be focused on what is the experience of managing a Fly.io app, what are the pros and cons, and what can you expect to pay. So let's go right over here. Speaking of what can you expect to pay, I'll show you in a little bit. I've got 2 or 3 Rails apps hosted on my personal account on here right now, and they don't get a lot of traffic. They're mainly just for me to throw ideas on a server and see how it works. I've got one app that actually does have a couple users, not a whole lot of traffic. So I'll start with that caveat up front. But right here, I will show you the specs that I typically will set for a new Rails app. And I found that a gigabyte of memory is very comfortable for Rails 8, which I think all the apps that I have deployed right now, maybe except 1 or 2, are on Rails 8. And a gigabyte, it fits very comfortably within a gigabyte. I've experimented with even 256 megabytes. That's definitely on the small end. It seems like a simple Rails app that doesn't, have a lot of background processes eating up more memory. It seems like a Rails app would fit inside the 256, and that's a big win for saving some money on little side projects, right? So let's take a look at what the pricing looks like here. If you're going to have a gigabyte shared CPU for 10 gigabyte volume, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 10 gigabytes of hard drive space, you've got $10 a month. And you can play around with this calculator all you want. That's another neat thing about the service. I have not found any surprises. The pricing has been very consistent, and I've been happy with it for my side projects. You can choose between different kinds of CPUs. Like I said, most of my apps are low volume applications on Fly, so I've been using the shared CPU type. Works just great. Let's see what the price does when I go down to the 256 megabytes. So we cut the price down by about half. We've got $6 a month on the total cost of this machine. And if you're running a Rails 8 app with SQLite and you don't need any external dependencies, there you go. There's your whole app. And again, you're probably not going to fit much more processes other than Rails in your virtual machine if you only have 256 megabytes. So think about that. It's very easy to change what type of machine that you're deploying to, so you can play around with it and see what works for you. Hey, quick pause here. I'm Caleb Lape, and if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you're trying to make your software dream a reality. After a decade of building Rails apps for companies like GitHub, I've realized something. Tutorials are great, but they can't replace the experience. Every week you spend piecing together solutions is a week. You could be collecting customer feedback. You could be shipping. That's why I help founders turn their ideas into working MVPs, like the ones you're seeing here, in 30 days or less. No more tutorial hell, no more stuck projects. If you're ready to stop learning and start launching, click the link in the description. Let's get your idea in front of real customers. Now, back to the video. Here's a little peek at my dashboard. You can see I've got the 1 gigabyte machine. I've got another app on a shared CPU. Oh, and I've got a very simple Rails app right here deployed to a shared CPU with 256. So that one, it doesn't do much database access at all. I think it's just authentication, and the rest of it is all front end stuff. So I knew that I wasn't going to need a whole lot of memory anyway. And this app runs great on 256 megabytes. So that's a great case study there. Chat to do, we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. And now to share that little tip that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. We're going to do a quick demo of how this works. I'm going to actually force the machine to be suspended because I don't want to wait for it to auto suspend. And then I'm going to show you how quickly it can start back up from a suspended state. Now, in my experience with Fly.io, your suspended minutes are not billed to your account. So you can save a lot of money turning on the auto suspend feature, and I will show you in just a moment how that works and how quickly and well it works. What Fly.io will do is if you set the correct configuration value, and I'm just going to show you my configuration to make it very straightforward for you. So you can set all kinds of configuration in the fly.toml file. You can see I'm using SQLite 3, which is default in Rails, and I can't be any more thrilled than I already am about that. That's working great for my apps so far. And you can see that we're setting the app process, and all of this configuration, if memory serves, was default from the fly.io fly control deploy command from the CLI. It automatically scaffolded this. But this is the line right here: auto stop machines with suspend and auto start machines true. And you might need this setting as well. What that does is after a certain amount of inactivity with your app, it will go ahead and put it in the suspended mode. And then auto start machines means when you get a request into your application, Fly.io will then resume that process or that virtual machine and have you up and running again in time to serve the request. At least that's the goal. Now let's see if it works. This is going to be a slightly contrived example, but I'm going to suspend. This is the chat to do application. All right, I just suspended it. And you can see in the logs the virtual machine has been suspended. And I'm going to try to go there, and boom, the application starts right up. Let's look at the logs. Did you see how fast that happened? So it's been my experience when things seem to have been working consistently well with Fly.io auto resuming your application. And just for an extra bonus, let's take a look at the Grafana that Fly.io automatically sets up for you. If I go back over here, you can navigate to your machine metrics this way. And you can look at your memory usage. I'm holding steady right here, 475 megabytes of free memory. CPU load is nice and low. You can see disk I/O, networking, volumes, all that good stuff. So a lot of great information packed into this thing, even your volume usage. So you can keep tabs on, since you know your SQLite database, and maybe even in the default installation, you've got your files from your file uploads stored on the hard drive on the volume. Well, you can keep tabs on that and make sure that you have enough space. So that's Fly.io. I've been having a lot of fun using it over the last, boy, it's probably been a year or two now that I've been playing with it. And I have enjoyed it immensely. I think it's especially shines for your little weekend side projects. You could, with Rails 8 and Fly.io, you could build and deploy an application in one weekend for sure, in probably an hour or two, very easily. And you can use a little bit of AI and maybe even do it faster. And you should check out my video about doing that if you're interested in learning more. Anyway, with that said, I'm wishing you all a blessed week, and I will catch you next time.